Good morning, Adelaide. How are you? Andrew Stacey here from the City of Adelaide Lions Club. Here on the Lions Get Active walk. We've got a small crew with us today. Say hello, everyone. Hello. 5 of us here, if you can see us all. We've just made a quick start. We're at the Torrens Weir, as we have been for the last couple of weeks. Starting, and we're opposite the North Adelaide Par 3 golf course. For anyone who wants to join us in the following weeks, we'll be here for a few weeks. Hope you're well wherever you are in the world. Coda, I can see you online there. Good to see you, buddy. Batru will be watching as well, hopefully. It's a beautiful morning here in Adelaide. There's a bit of a threatening of rain, but at the moment it's a little bit cold, so we're all rugged up. At the moment the sunshine is out, but there are a few threatening clouds. I saw that direction, so a couple of us got our umbrellas. We're all rugged up, but we're off and running for this morning's Get Active walk. Now this morning, after last week's video that we had Kimberly from Diabetes SA, Uncle Billy, how are you, buddy? We got some good questions and a good response from those watching. And one of the people on the walk that came with us last week was sort of in the background, has, oh jeez, if you can see Cuz's Allegiance back there, you can see. Where's the Indigenous one?
It's on order. It's coming in. Pay for the shipping tonight, so it'll be in a few weeks.
We've got to keep an eye out for the cyclists, so let's make sure that we're on the left-hand side, guys.
Yeah, they get nasty.
They do. I'm going to put the sunnies on. Yeah, we had Kimberly from Diabetes SA, and one of the people on the walk is now having to have a chat with us, and it's Jess here with us. Jess was inspired by Hey Mum and Dad, by Kimberly, and went straight up to her and asked a few questions. And Jess is more than happy to answer her a few questions because Jess herself lives with diabetes, so she's more than happy to have a chat with us. So if you've got any questions for Jess, as someone who directly has diabetes and lives with it, then please send them through. I've got a few questions that I'll ask. I've said to the guys with us, if you've got questions for Jess, throw them in there as well. And we'll find out what it's like, I guess, living with diabetes from a personal point of view. So any questions, send them through. Otherwise, I hope you're well. I hope you're getting your exercise in. And maybe you can join us on the walk next week here at the River Torrens. We're starting at the Weir. We make our way ahead to the Adelaide Uni Bridge, and then we'll make our way back. And I think it's more than 3 Ks actually, so we will go with it. But thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks for coming on, and thank you for your interest in having a chat. So it's just a chat, ask a few questions, we'll natter on a bit, and we'll go from there. So let's start with the easy stuff.
Sure.
Tell us about what diabetes you've got, which type you've got,
So,
and maybe how you discovered that, I guess, or were diagnosed.
So I was 10 years old when I was diagnosed with type 1.
Yep.
So I guess the symptoms of when I had it, so I lost a lot of weight.
Oh.
I was 27 kilos at 10 years old, which
Wow.
you have a 10-year-old, you probably know that that's not a healthy weight.
It's a touch underweight, wow.
Yeah, I was drinking lots of water, really, really thirsty, I remember.
Oh.
My sugar level at the time was 42.7, which
Jeez.
a normal sugar level for someone who lives with diabetes should be between, say, 4 and 10 roughly.
Wow.
A normal person without it would be probably between about 4 and 7.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so I was
40.
really, really sick. Yeah,
Jeez.
yeah. So I went. Mum took me to the doctor at the time. Living in Sydney back then, doctor did a few tests and said, yeah, it looks like you could have diabetes. Next day I was at school, rushed to hospital.
Yep.
Found out that that was my level at the time, and then I was told that I would be on needles every day for the rest of my life.
That
So I
sounds,
could imagine.
that sounds marvellous.
Oh, it was so scary. I was devastated.
Yeah,
yeah. Most 10-year-olds shouldn't have to deal with that
Well,
sort of
no.
thing. It was, I was in tears for weeks. I was in the hospital for about a week learning
Yeah, right.
about it. Mum was given like a lot of books about it to
Okay.
read.
Yeah.
Diabetes educators, people like Kimberly would take people through like the diagnosis process
Okay.
and talk about like, what to do in different circumstances and basically educate you on like what it was. So,
Okay.
and there's so much to learn with it.
Yeah.
And some of, even today, like you're constantly learning
Yeah,
what
right.
different foods do to your sugar levels. There's so many different types of insulins out there. Like,
Yeah,
if
that
you
was the one
ask
thing.
Kimberly,
Yeah, that was one interesting. I sort of threw that question out thinking, oh, this is going to be a simple answer here, and then she threw out what she did.
And that's the thing. So I've probably used 6 different types of insulin.
6?
Yeah.
Wow.
Back then as well, I was given syringes and
Yeah.
I guess your little bottles of insulin. I
Yeah.
guess. To actually draw up 2 different types of insulin in a syringe. So
Yeah,
you'd have to measure like a certain amount of like fast acting, which basically is the type of insulin where you're going to eat straight away. You need fast acting insulin to get your sugar level down, and then you need a long acting insulin that lasts throughout the day.
Yeah.
So you're basically trying to measure different insulins there in a syringe. And back in the hospital when I was diagnosed as well, like looking at that as a 10-year-old, you're like, you're so scared.
Yeah, that would have
like,
been just
imagine
welcoming
giving
as.
a syringe to a 10-year-old and saying this is what you're going to be using forever.
Yeah.
And I remember at the time as well, because obviously like Mum being there in hospital crying as well, but she's just had a healthy 10-year-old turn into something that's,
go back a bit, because you mentioned, I was going to say morning or good evening, Uncle Billy and Val, hope you're well. Thanks for joining us. Now, my Uncle Billy in England, he actually has diabetes as well. I think he said he's got type 2.
Yeah.
So I'm sure, Uncle Billy, if you're still listening, I'm sure you'll correct me if I got that wrong there. You said you were diagnosed with 10, and you mentioned what you were feeling at the time to sort of be, suspect of whatever was going on.
Yeah.
But how long had those symptoms been going on for? A year or 2 years or like a month?
No, it's hard to know. We probably, thinking back to the time, would have probably thought of maybe about a month and a half, 2 months.
Is that all?
Couple of months,
Yeah, right.
It could have been a bit longer though.
But like, so it's obviously not like something that you were suffering from for a year, where you. Because that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking like, if you've got diabetes, you're sort of gonna, not that you have it from birth, but you just have it for an extended period of time before you sort of realise what's going on.
No, so it wouldn't have been from birth.
Okay.
No, not at all. Because back then as well, like with a high sugar level, as well, like being diagnosed without a working pancreas.
Yeah.
Like you'd basically been in a coma almost. Like if it had been going on for years and years, like you would have found yourself in a coma before then.
Oh,
from having
right.
such a high level. But I'm probably thinking a couple of months there.
Okay. Yeah, right. No worries.
Yeah.
Okay. So in hospital, realising what's going to be happening for the rest of your life was, seeing syringes. So we know what kids are like with needles.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I personally don't mind needles. I don't like them, but I don't mind them. But again, I can say that as an adult.
We tend to, exactly.
But as a kid, man.
Oh yeah, and it's hard enough getting kids immunised,
Oh, exactly.
let alone like giving them 2, 3, 4 needles a day, even more sometimes.
So those I was going to say serums, but the bottles that you had of your insulin, was it guesswork as to how much you were mixing?
Yeah, so at the time, like you're sort of told, you'd probably feel, they kind of measure it out like to how much you weigh, as to how much like insulin you may need like per meal.
Yep.
And back at the time, like it was a couple of units of short acting mixed with like maybe about 10 units or so of long acting.
Okay.
And as your body's as you're growing as a 10-year-old as well, like every day would sort of be different as to how much you would need.
Okay.
So it was like, back then you had to I was seeing a doctor like more frequently than I do now to try and adjust insulin doses.
Yeah. How often? Like once a week or once a month or?
Yeah, probably like once a month. Back
Okay,
then.
yeah.
Yeah, and diabetes educators as well would help you
Yeah,
adjust
yeah.
your insulin.
Yeah.
Now, when I give insulin, so it's not a case of I just eat something and just give a certain amount.
Okay.
There's a lot of maths involved with it.
Yeah, right.
In that, for me,
Yeah.
I would have to give, like, say if I was eating a sandwich, for instance, there'd be about 30 grams of carbohydrates in that.
Yeah, yeah.
So I basically give about 2 units of fast-acting insulin per 15 grams of carbs.
2 units per 15 grams.
Yeah,
so obviously
so
for a
I'd
30
be
gram
giving-
sandwich, that's 4 units.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And a lot of the time as well, you're kind of guessing as to how many carbs would be in
Yeah, right.
certain foods that you eat, and it gets really difficult when you eat out as well, because you don't know what's in meals.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
sometimes you would obviously
Okay.
over give insulin
Yeah.
where you don't need it,
Yeah.
and then end up with a big low after, and then have to eat or drink something for that low, and then you would go up again. So it's never
Just that yo-yo effect, isn't it?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I know that, I mean, when you say that now, because I'm so naive about it all, that makes complete and utter logical sense with
Yeah.
what you eat, and therefore,
Yeah.
obviously the blood sugar levels that are running around, and how much insulin your body sort of is trying to do. And yeah, right. And that makes so much more sense as to that guesswork in
Yeah.
terms of, like, say, how much actual carbohydrates or sugar it is that's already in your body.
Exactly. And
Yeah,
it's-
right. I
there's
just never thought of it
also
that way.
What they have a correction dose as well. So because my sugar level is meant to be, say, between like 5 and 10. If
I'm laughing
my-
at Cousin's facials back there. I'm so glad that's on camera.
If my sugar level was, say, about say 12, for instance, and I
Yeah.
wanted to bring it back down to 8, and I'm eating something,
Yeah.
I would have to give the amount of insulin for the food I'm eating as well as a correction. So about,
Oh,
say
right.
for me, 1 unit of insulin would bring my sugar level down by about 4.
Okay.
Like 4
yeah.
levels.
Yeah. Okay.
Whereas this is so different for other diabetics as well.
Okay.
A lot of the time as well, like exercise makes your insulin work better.
Okay.
So you would, if on a day I would do exercise, I tend to have a few more lows than I should, because
Okay.
I'm giving, it's hard because with all the foods you eat, like they affect you differently with exercise as well.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because your metabolism works
Exactly,
faster
yeah.
after you've exercised. So,
Yeah.
again, just for those who have been following this program for a while, when I've actually said to people, if your aim is to lose weight through exercise, we're watching after some cyclists here. Lots of people here at Torrens Park, which is marvellous. If you're trying to lose weight, you're actually better off not eating before you exercise and you eat afterwards. And so, whether you're trying to put on weight through muscle or you're trying to lose weight, you always need to eat after you exercise, because your body needs that recovery nutrients and whatnot. And so that's what Jess is referring to, is that after exercise, your metabolism rises. And then when you eat, your metabolism rises a little bit again.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I guess as well, not to confuse type 1 with type 2.
Cass is in the background there.
Type 1s, unfortunately, with type 1s, we didn't actually develop it because of weight issues
Yeah.
or eating sugar, whereas
Yep.
a lot of people have...
What's that behind there, guys?
In the years that I've had it,
Yeah.
a lot of people have asked me, did you eat too much sugar as a
Yeah,
child?
yeah.
Were you fat as a child?
Yeah.
And it's unfortunately type 1 is like autoimmune, basically, like
Yeah.
Kimberly said last week,
Yep.
where your pancreas just will shut down and just stop making insulin, whereas type 2s, obviously, your pancreas is still working, you just need a bit of insulin to help, or
Yeah.
you need the tablets to help.
Yep. And I say, that's what I was sort of wondering when I asked that question before.
Yeah.
When you're saying that your pancreas just shuts down,
Yeah,
I guess, do we know what the reason for that is?
they haven't worked that
Yeah.
out. No, it's just autoimmune. Your body
Yeah.
just sees that the insulin your pancreas is producing, that it's something that's attacking you,
Yeah.
you know, and it just shuts down.
And to me,
Yeah.
sorry then, to me that would be just as frustrating not knowing how that's happened
Exactly.
as much as the fact that it's happened.
Yeah, I guess as well, like being diagnosed, I tend to ask myself and would cry a lot when I was younger, like
Yeah.
why did I have to
Watch
get
out, Indy. Can you move over to the left, Indy? People trying to get around your home.
Yeah, so you tend to ask yourself, you know, why me? Why
Yeah.
do I deserve this? Why did I get this?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And as a child, no one, you don't really know many people with it.
Nah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that isolation's got to be bad
Yeah.
until you realise they're out there that
Exactly.
you're not the only one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just going to stop there. Uncle Billy's written something. I'm just going to try and read it. Mine develops whilst very ill. Even now have to watch the sugar levels. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
So that's right, Uncle Billy is type 2, if I'm remembering right. So, yeah. And like I said, if you've got any questions out there, guys, throw them Jess's way, and I'll pass them on to Jess. So, just following on from what you're saying there, obviously as a child it hit you hard, and I started to allude to the fact to that mental side of things with Kimberly last week, but we didn't talk about it a lot.
Oh, yeah.
What's that mental side been like for you then? I guess.
Yeah, so
Dealing with it in all these years.
Yeah, it gets you really hard mentally.
Yeah.
I actually have suffered from depression and
Indy, watch out, hon. Thanks, mate.
Yeah, so I suffer from depression, and there's a lot of type 1 diabetics do, unfortunately. I think they've said. I was watching a video the other week where the lady in the video actually said that on YouTube said that about 30% of diabetics do suffer from depression.
Okay.
15% suffer from anxiety disorder as well.
Yep.
So it does hit you hard mentally.
Yeah.
Another factor is with your sugar levels, because they're not stable as such, like, you know, like someone like yourself.
Yeah.
That also affects your brain and how
It has to,
everything's
yeah.
all wired there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the chemicals running around your brain has to be affected.
Yeah. So it's it's really difficult some days. I have learned to accept it now.
Yeah.
Whereas back then, a few years ago, for instance, I would, sit there and just cry like.
Yeah.
This is true. It's so difficult to deal with.
Yeah.
Because I guess with your sugar levels as well, you've kind of got to keep them under control.
Yeah.
Kimberly started touching base on a HbA1c last week.
Yeah, I heard of it a couple of times. I was going to ask about that, and then we tangented it off elsewhere.
So to put it simply, it's basically like every couple of months, every 3 to 6 months, you have a blood test which tells you what your HbA1c is. So it's basically an average sugar level for the last few months, to put it simply to people.
Yeah.
That's how I was told what it was when I was diagnosed.
Yep.
So they basically, doctors would like you to aim for a HbA1c between about maybe 6.5 to 7.5 as a type 1.
Okay, yeah.
Now I've been lucky in the last few years, like I've been able to get my HbA1c down between about 7 and 7.5.
Cool.
Lowest I've had was about 6.9.
Okay.
They usually, with a HbA1c, if it's too low as well,
Yeah.
like my doctor said to me at one stage, with my HbA1c being at 6.9, she actually said that's probably too low for you on needles, because a lot of people are using the insulin pumps, where we'll touch base on that in a moment. So she actually said that's too low for you, because she suspected I was going low during the night. And the lower you go during the night, the more susceptible you are to going into a coma.
Yeah, which apparently is bad.
Exactly. Well, yes.
Yeah.
There are, so I'm actually using the Freestyle Libre at the moment.
Yeah, now Jess told me about this last week, and it was one of the questions I was going to ask, and there's one other question I want to make sure I ask this time, so I've already told Jess what it is. So this is a different way of measuring your sugar levels.
It's a different way of measuring your sugar levels. So rather than pricking your fingers...
We'll head up the path and up the bridge there.
Rather than pricking your fingers about 6 to 7, 8 times a day, however often you need to, You basically, I've got a sensor on my arm, which even you said last week it looked like a disc.
Yeah, it's a tiny little white disc.
Small little disc.
Yeah. Playing like a little air hockey on an elbow.
Yeah, so it's kind of got like a little needle underneath it, like a little tiny needle that goes into the skin, like the blood to kind of pick up what your levels are doing all day.
Yep.
So you basically just scan your arm, and then it will actually show you what you've been doing.
11.8?
Yeah, 11.8.
Yeah.
But it will actually have a line showing what it's been doing, like a little zigzag line to show you what your levels have been doing overnight. So there was,
as long as that line doesn't go beep at the end, I guess.
So there was there's a foundation out there called Danny Foundation, and
Danny.
So a teenager a couple of years ago actually, who was living in Sydney as well, she actually passed away during a sleep in a coma.
Oh, right.
Due to diabetes and low sugar levels.
Yep.
So they actually fought really hard with the government to try and get this subsidised for everyone.
Yeah.
So they've been able to subsidise it for under 21s.
Morning, Ricky. How are you, buddy? Patria, I'll get to your note there in a second, my dear. I haven't forgotten. Hammers, how are you, mate?
Pick up bread.
Probably. Sorry, Jess.
That's all right. So they actually subsidised it for under 21s, which means nowadays when kids are diagnosed, especially at the ages where they can't even talk, they can put these sorts of things on their arms.
Yeah.
And then their parents can see what their levels are doing.
Yep.
And watch that all day.
Yeah,
so they don't want their children, say under 2, if they're diagnosed, then going into a coma because they can't actually speak and say, I'm feeling shaky. Yeah, so it makes it easier for them, whereas we didn't have that back 20 years ago or so when I was diagnosed.
So when did this technology come out?
Came out about
We'll make our way down this path, shall we?
maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay, yeah.
But it isn't the most, like, the cheapest thing to afford.
No.
But for me, I feel as though, for me, it's probably worth it, because a lot of type 1s unfortunately get what they call like burnout, where they basically like stop testing their sugar levels because it just gets too frustrating.
If you're doing it 5, 6, 7, 8 times a day.
Exactly. Yeah. So this helps you, and it helps you prevent, like, having your levels under control with a good HbA1c helps you prevent future complications like like amputations or neuropathy, like nerve damage. And even Kimberly said last week a lot of type 1s will.
Well, whose great idea was it to come along this way? Should have remembered this from last week.
Even Kimberly said last week a lot of type 1s have to check their eyes because every few years, like, you could get nerve damage in your eyes.
Yep.
I've been fortunate enough now, 20 years on, without any complications.
We'll head on downstairs. Okay,
but
cool.
Yeah, a lot of people aren't. I've had a friend in the past that's lost feeling in her feet, also has kidney problems because of type 1 diabetes and levels, I guess, being not under control properly, which is so hard to control. You just, every day you wake up and you think today's going to be a good day, I'm going to have my levels under control. But you'll just eat, you give the insulin, you might give too much, too little, and it just sets you off for a bad day.
Man.
Yeah,
fair enough. I'm not going to underestimate how frustrating that must be, so I'm not going to try and empathise.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm just going to get onto Patria's comment or question here. What are complications of type 1 diabetes, and how does it compare to complications that, type 1 diabetes, how does it compare to complications that type 2 diabetics have?
Yep.
And for example, you hear about vision issues, sores are slow to heal, amputations, etc, etc.
Yeah, so as type 1 and type 2, you both get similar complications. I guess with type 1, because you get diagnosed, or you are diagnosed a lot younger, you want to try and control it for as long as you can, basically, to stop all the complications from happening. So because I was diagnosed, for instance, at 10, having diabetes from say 10 to 50 years old, for instance, you know, you've had it for 40 years, you want to make sure in that time you've got all your levels under control to try and prevent all the future complications. But yes, you still get nerve damage, you still have amputations, you still get neuropathy in your eyes, your feet, you still get kidney problems.
Can you hold this for a second? Sorry, I'm listening.
Right.
I've just had my
so
comment, just knocked my comments off.
complications, just that you want to try and prevent them as much as possible, because you have a longer time with it than a lot of type 2s, I guess.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. I've somehow knocked off the comments. I don't know how I've done that. So if you're watching, or sorry, if you're making comments, I'll see if they pop up again. Otherwise, I've accidentally lost them on the feed here. So
Oh no.
I don't know how I've done that.
The sun's out now, look. Yes.
On a wrestling.
That's all right. Give us a call if you need to, if you've got questions.
Yeah, still slow to heal though as well, definitely.
Slow to heal.
That,
Yeah, right. Well, like I say, given I guess with it being obviously with it affecting your blood, has to have an effect on that sort of stuff.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
There's also, like, you also want to keep your levels under control, because if your levels go too high, obviously, I said before, you can go into comas and such. But you can also get what they call ketoacidosis as well.
Okay.
Where if you don't have enough insulin in your body, like the insulin can't use the sugar properly for energy.
Yeah.
So your body is starting to feed off your muscles for energy.
Ah. Yeah,
And with that, you can end up really, really sick. You feel
thanks, Kath.
sick.
okay.
Like you know, throw up kind of sick, or
Yeah, right.
yeah, just really like ill, where you can end up in hospital for that.
Yep.
So you can't afford to just have your levels like just sitting really high and not get them down either. And sometimes with that, when your body has gone into ketoacidosis, you can't get your levels down at all, no matter how much insulin you give.
Yeah.
So you basically wind yourself up in hospital, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So that sort of thing as well.
Yeah.
Wow.
I guess, like again, a lot of people also might say to me, "Oh, should you be eating that?" Like, and the answer that I would have is like, I can actually eat anything as long as I give the insulin for it.
Yeah.
If it's pure sugar, it's obviously a bit harder to kind of control how much insulin you're giving.
Yeah.
As well, where you might go too low after as well, eating sugar. So you wind yourself up eating more sugar as well. So it's a big yo-yo effect. Yeah.
What a pain in the butt at times. Being kind there has to be a pain in the butt all the time. Yeah. Let's move on from that side. Well, unless anyone's got any questions, I say try and send them through. I'll hopefully be able to read them. If not, I'll send questions on to Jess. We've lost our light. I'll send questions on to Jess, say via Messenger or something like that. So, and that way she can answer stuff. But you also mentioned last week, we were chatting after the walk last week, that as you were growing up, you went on camps.
Yeah, diabetes camps.
Yeah, do you want to tell us about those?
Yeah, so they basically have diabetes camps for the teenagers and the children that want to go to them, obviously, organised through, you know, like I was living in Queensland at the time, Diabetes Queensland, or like Kimberly works for Diabetes SA, for instance. So back when I think I went on my first camp probably, it must have been maybe 8 months or so after diagnosis.
Okay.
So I hadn't actually met anyone back then until going on the camps with it. So they're basically like normal school camps where you do, you know, your activities, like I don't know, like you might play sport, those sorts of activities, And they have
lots of kumbayaing around the fireplace.
So they have your diabetes educators on them, like Kimberly, other educators obviously, and nurses as well. So
how you doing, Pat?
each evening or so you go to sleep, the nurses come in at night and test your sugar levels,
Okay.
make sure you're not going low into a coma or anything like that. And then and then they'll wake you up and say, you know, you need to have lemonade and
Yeah,
that
right.
sort of thing, jelly beans, whatever at the time is available. They have it's
Would that actually keep you up as well than having a sugar hit as a kid?
Yes.
Yeah, I bet the leaders love
I
that then.
remember one of the camps I was on with one of my friends. We came to the conclusion that the longer we stayed up at night, one night, the lower our level would go. So we would get a chocolate milk or a strawberry milk. And I remember getting that strawberry milk that time.
Just playing the system.
And they help you as well in like explaining, you know, how much insulin you may have to give for certain foods.
Okay.
And there's a lot of education.
I was just going to say, it's like school away from home.
It is.
Yeah.
They used to have them in school holidays as well, which is good. Yeah. So they were a lot of fun. Still talk to some of the people on them as well that I met.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Cool. And so how many camps did you go on?
About 3.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think I was 10.
Are they only
11,
for like kids and teenagers?
So they have age groups. So the one that I went on, I think it was for 8 to 12-year-olds.
Okay.
Then they have the teenage, because those ones went on for a week, like 5 days, 6 days or so. Then they have the teenage camps as well they usually go for about 3 days.
Okay.
2 or 3 days there. So yeah, they're broken up into age groups. Yeah. And you meet a lot of older people with type 1 as well. Like they have special guests on them.
Oh yeah.
They have a lot of older people volunteer as well.
Oh, cool.
Like, you know, Kimberly was saying to me last week that I should volunteer.
Absolutely, I was just going to ask.
Yeah, I'd love to. So that way, like the younger kids can see, you know, it's okay to live. Like you can live
it's
a
not
normal
the end
life.
of the world, is it?
Yeah, and you see older people, like, you know, people in their 20s, 30s, and they think, you know, those people have been living with it for so long and they're still healthy. They don't have amputated feet or anything. Like, I can live a long, healthy life.
Yeah, you definitely need that reassurance, especially if they're first diagnosed with the whole thing. That
it is. It honestly is. Some of them as well, I think they have for younger age groups as well, where they can bring parents along to them too.
Yep.
So they have them for, like, you know, I think 4 or 5-year-olds where it's like an overnight thing with parents there. And
right.
so those sorts of kids.
Right.
Yeah.
Just dipping the toe in, that's what it's all about. So just learn that little chunk at a time.
That's it.
And so where would the camps be? Where would you go?
So, because I lived in Queensland at the
course,
time,
yeah,
you probably
yeah.
wouldn't know. So I was on the Gold Coast where I was living. They had them on the Sunshine Coast, which is probably about 2 hours away or so.
Yeah.
So you get people also travelling up, you know, from northern
Queensland.
Yeah, northern Queensland areas down as well. So you meet a lot of people, like, in between, like all different locations basically. Yeah.
Oh, cool. So have you, whenever you moved here to Adelaide then, have you been in contact with the camps, or where, do you know, have any idea where they're held here?
I think Kimberly said last week they used to be held at Mylor.
Oh yeah.
But I think they've just recently changed the locations of them.
Okay.
But yeah, for anyone that might be watching that might want to go
easy
on them,
you
just contact Diabetes SA and they'll be able to give you the all the information on them. Yeah.
So would you actually seriously consider being a mentor or whatever title that they give?
Yeah, I reckon I'd love to, like, just to show, just to try and help people, you know, the young ones, and say it's okay, like, because you know, I guess from first-hand experience as well, you know what they're actually dealing with and how they feel. A lot of people I know, actually, like, not a lot, but a few of the diabetics I know are actually studying as well to be diabetes educators.
Okay.
You have to go through nursing degrees and diabetes degrees, education, all of that for a few years to actually get there. But that in itself is a huge thing, because when you're diagnosed, you just want you want someone there who might understand how you feel as well. there was an educator who lived on the Gold Coast and he had it back when I was diagnosed, and it was just like I remember seeing him once and saying, I don't know why my levels are running so high, I can't get them down, and he was saying these things sort of happen to us from time to time, Jess, you know, happen to me as well. You just want that reassurance and that understanding that you're not going crazy. And I guess
it's that normalizing what's going on, so that
and I guess it's like here as well. Kimberly asked me if I knew about the Dire Buddies group on Facebook.
The Dire Buddies?
Dire Buddies group, yeah. So there's a group on Facebook where people from Adelaide will obviously join it, and they'll organise like dinner catch-ups for people.
Oh yeah.
So you can go and talk to other people, meet other people with it.
Cool.
Yeah, they kind of try and organise the dinners like different locations around Adelaide to kind of, I guess, to help the people from say north if they're travelling, you know, south every time to get the dinners. They'll do one up north, west, south, whatever, to try and
just share it around.
Yeah, so that's a good group as well for type 1s. It's really, really helpful to be in those groups as well online, because you'll be able to ask people, you know, I'm experiencing this, have you ever gone through this? How do you fix it? You know, like, because diabetes as well, it doesn't just, it affects like a lot of other, like you get a lot of other health conditions as well from it. Like it's not just its own illness as well, which...
Just watching the rollers over here, just making sure we stay out of their way, so no one falls over.
Yeah, like because it's autoimmune as well, like a lot of other people can get things like celiac disease from it. Like I'm tested, I have a yearly blood test to make sure that I don't have symptoms of any other condition lying around that I'm not aware of, like thyroid problems, kidneys, you know, all of that sort of, those sorts of autoimmune problems as well. Yeah.
Man, so like I said, it's given the fact that it's a lifetime illness, and obviously living with it, it's a matter of being aware of what those other complications are.
Exactly, because it
just so no one can expect. Fair enough.
So like even from time to time over the years, like I've you know, often asked in the group, has anyone got this or experienced this? How do you handle it? And a lot of things affect your levels differently, like with exercise, for instance. Like it's today I'm lucky because we're going on a walk and my level's doing the right thing. But I've gone on walks before, like Matt who was with us today, like we went on a walk a couple of months ago, and I said I can't actually walk, my sugar level's 3 right now, it's going to go down. Wow. And then it dropped to 2, so we had to wait like 20 minutes before I could walk or walk slower. So it affects.
What a pain! So when you get down to 2 or 3, what happens?
So when your sugar level goes low, like say under 4 for instance, you start feeling really shaky, sweaty. You can get confused. You're just not feeling right, so you try and have sugar to try and get it up. But if you've just exercised as well, your insulin is working better in your body. So you've got to kind of have more sugar to try and bring it up, and then it gets that rebound effect later where you go high. The lowest I've actually been, so on a blood tester now, the tester will not read your level if it's, I think it's between like under about, or like 1 point something or other. Don't get there often, that's why I don't know the levels. So I've actually, the tester just says low, LO. Wow. So you don't know what it is, so I've woken up like that before. And when your level goes above, I think it's 33 on a meter.
Wow.
More familiar with that one.
More familiar with that one.
Your meter will not actually read it either. It'll just say hi.
Jeepers.
It doesn't say you're dead.
So like over the years I have experienced that, unfortunately. And I guess you might ask why, like, so you know when you get...
What would cause someone to go that high?
So you know when you wake up in the morning, you might go brush your teeth and go to work, and that's like a regime that you do.
Yeah.
With me, it's like.
To some people.
You might kind of say, oh, did I brush my teeth this morning? I can't remember if I brushed my teeth or not. Like those sorts of things you do on like a daily basis where you don't think about them. Insulin for me is one of those things.
Yeah.
So I will often eat, and then all of a sudden, not often, I could eat, and then all of a sudden like an hour and a half later, I start feeling really like out of it, like just like, why is my level so high? And then I'll realise I've forgotten to give insulin.
Wow.
Because after having it for 20 years, you get into that regime where you're like, yep, it's just a thing, like
It should be automatic, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but you kind of go, all of a sudden, did I do that? And you realise, no, I mustn't have. And some of the insulin pens as well, on the top of them, they'll actually have like a little timer where it will show you how many hours ago you gave insulin.
Oh, really? Oh, that's useful.
So,
yeah, right.
Because there are different types of insulins out there. There are two probably main companies that make insulins, which would be Novo and Lilly.
Okay.
People might be familiar with them.
Yeah.
The Novo have actually brought out some pens that have like little timers on the top of them.
Oh.
That'll show you when you gave it last, which is really handy.
Yeah,
instances like that where you're thinking, did I do it?
Not?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So.
Well, that sort of takes care of the question. I was actually going to ask, what are the technological advances, but you obviously just mentioned them anyway. So.
Well, that's one of them.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are on the insulin pumps as well.
Okay.
Kimberly, we started talking about those last week, and Kimberly mentioned them as well.
Yeah.
So they're basically so that you don't have to keep jabbing yourself maybe like 5-7 times a day every time you eat.
Yeah.
You basically have like the sensor in my arm. You have a sensor that goes into your stomach, so a little tiny needle, and it's attached to. Easiest way to describe it would be attached to like a cord.
Okay.
Kind of like when you go into hospital and you have a drip.
Yeah.
It's kind of like just a cord that is attached to like a device as big as your phone.
Yeah.
And you tell it like when you're eating, and it will just give the insulin over like a couple of hours to try and the idea of them is to work more like a pancreas, like a normal person's pancreas, where it's constantly like just giving a little bit every every
literally as it's needed,
day,
so.
like every hour, minute or so. Yeah, as it's needed.
Okay.
So this will kind of secrete it over like, say for instance I ate a sandwich and I was on the pump, I would say I've just like kind of eaten this many carbs, and then it will say, it'll be programmed kind of thing to say like give this much insulin, and then it will just give a little bit extra like as well every every minute, every hour or so. Because you don't actually have your long acting insulin on it. You just have like a quick acting insulin.
So that
using you there.
No. What I was just thinking of, you've probably said it, it might have just gone over, I just missed it.
Yeah.
The pump that you're talking, that's portable then?
Yeah,
It's just sitting
yeah.
in the okay.
It's
I don't know
just
why I was
like
thinking
a
that maybe
device
it was
as big as your phone that has a cord attached to it.
Righty,
in your stomach.
yeah, cool.
So the good thing is on those you don't actually have your long-acting insulin. So I have to give a long-acting insulin that will basically last throughout the day. In the background of like each time I give insulin, quick acting insulin for the food I eat.
Yeah.
So in the morning I give a long acting insulin, and then I give a short acting insulin for the food. The short acting insulin only lasts like 4 hours or so.
Okay.
To get that meal working in your body and to get your level at a stable level. Whereas the long acting insulin sits in the background. So I guess the idea, like the easiest way to describe it was, if I woke up in the morning and decided that this would be a really bad idea, but if I wasn't going to eat all day, I would just give a long-acting insulin to keep my level just stable.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's like when you're sick, for instance, or times like when I had my wisdom teeth out, for instance, I would just give the long-acting insulin in the morning, and then because I knew I wasn't going to eat much during the day, and it would just stabilise it. Like, times when you,
Cool. Okay. Do you guys have any questions at all for Jess? No, she hasn't actually said already? Do you want to ask for? Absolutely.
I can't believe 33 though.
Yes. Well, it was 42 when I was diagnosed, so yeah.
I suppose the only thing is, you said you were 10.
Yeah.
Just watch out for this running group.
What was
So I was
tired?
yeah, tired, thirsty, dehydrated. I lost a lot of weight. So yeah, so I said before I was 27 kilos, a 10-year-old, which is not good at all. Because I guess
And if it's not in the family, it's not something.
yeah. So I didn't. No, so I didn't actually have anyone. No one in my family actually had it. And I
No.
guess last week, you asked if it could be hereditary.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no one in my family had it, so it wasn't suspected at all.
And that would have to have played on your mind as well
Yeah.
again when you were first diagnosed.
Yeah, so you wonder like, why do I have? So you wonder. Yeah, you wonder like, well, no one in the family has it. Why do I have
Yeah,
it?
well, how have you been lumped with it?
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, look, we've gone through heaps of information there. I mean, we've been talking the whole time. I don't know how long these walks are going for. We're going to start actually 35 minutes. Oh, that's okay. 37? Okay. So I think we're walking a little bit more than 3Ks, which is not a problem. We're keeping up with it fine. But such a wealth of information there, and I'm sure we've only
Yeah.
touched, a tenth of,
Oh,
of how much
exactly, yeah.
you know and how much there is to know. So thank you so much for sharing that. It's really appreciated. You're obviously more than welcome to come along and share some other stuff, because I mean there's still more, at least a couple other questions I've got
Yeah, exactly.
that we haven't had time to ask. So thank you so much for walking with us, ladies and gents.
Happy to be here.
Hopefully the footy goes well for your team, if whoever's playing today. I'm going to put a quick shout out to the North Adelaide Women's. Hope you go well in the grand final today. Thank you so much, Jess, for sharing everything you have. It's been really informative, and it's just great to obviously get that insight.
And I guess the main thing to remember, obviously type 1 is a very different condition.
Can we go that way? Sorry, yep.
Type 1 is a very different condition to type 2
Yeah.
as well. And any child, any age, anybody can get it really. So if you ever suspect that, your child might not be quite healthy, might be drinking lots of water or just doesn't seem right, definitely worth getting them tested, because there are so many out there as well that unfortunately are diagnosed too late and do pass away in comas as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I said the amount of people out there that suspect that could have diabetes and have no idea that they've got it would have to be, just scary as and worrying as. So yeah. But no, thank you for that. Absolutely awesome advice from Jess. And I said that certainly complements what Kimberly said last week. So as I've mentioned before, if you've got any questions out there, guys, please send them through. Let's learn more. The whole point, or one of the points of this Lions Get Active walk is to learn more about diabetes and just increase our awareness about it. And so thank you so much for doing that, because
Thanks for having me.
Oh, look, having that first-hand experience is hugely valuable for anyone that's going to learn, especially for a dumbass like me. So I'm more than happy to learn more. So we'll see over the next few weeks if we can get some more guests. If Jess wants to come along and talk some more, then that'd be great. If not, she wants to walk in the background, that's all cool. But yeah, if you've got any questions, send them through. So we're going to leave it there this Sunday morning. The sun has stayed out this whole time. We've lucked out with not getting rained on, as I thought might happen. So Nelson, you should have come along. Thank you so much for coming along, guys. Have a good Sunday, whatever it is that you're doing. Have a great week, and feel free to come and join us next Sunday. We'll still be here at the Torrens Weir. It's the car park that shares with the North Adelaide Par 3 golf course. If you want to go for a round of golf afterwards, go for it. There's a cafe over there. You can always grab a coffee. Go to Holy Moly. Otherwise, have yourself a good week, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for coming along. Cheers, guys.
Bye.